She dreamt of that night again, the memory as vivid as if it had happened just yesterday. She dreamed of this man countless times, the way his warm hands had enveloped hers, how his beautiful eyes seemed to hold secrets she could never quite grasp, and his breath, soft and close, had sent shivers down her spine. That man still makes her heart pound. The dream faded into the morning light, but her heart still raced with the echoes of that moment. "Mommy, you're going to be late," came the urgent voice of her son, his small hands tugging at her blanket. His voice was firm, filled with a sense of responsibility far beyond his years. Sitting up, she rubbed her eyes, greeted by the sight of her son. Remembering her client meeting, she quickly ran toward the bathroom. Later, as they sat for breakfast, her son looked at her with a critical eye. Her tightly knotted bun, black framed glasses, and loosely fitted clothes made her look like an old-fashioned woman. "Lousy," he muttered, summing up her appearance in a single word. "No mom is lousy in her son's eyes," she replied with a playful smile. "But why are you wearing glasses? You're not even short-sighted. And how are you going to find a boyfriend if you don't dress up?" he complained. "Well," she said with a laugh, "if I don't find anyone, you can take care of me, right?" His face turned pale at the thought. Though he was far too young for such responsibility, he nodded reluctantly. "Fine, I'll take care of you. But let me take tomorrow off. Just make an excuse, like Grandpa died." "Didn't we use that excuse last time?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Then tell them my grandpa on my father's side died," he replied seriously. "And why do you want to take off?" she questioned. "Nothing. That event is just so boring," he answered casually. She looked at him with concern. She knew the real reason. He didn't want anyone to notice he didn't have a father. At just 5 years old, he was so independent, so much like that man. Later, she arrived at Dynasty Hotel where she worked and noticed how crowded it was. Model Nana was expected to visit, and the place was buzzing with activity. "Director Gan, what should we do? The situation is getting out of control," someone called out to her. "Open the emergency exit of the parking lot and have them enter from there," she ordered. As they worked to manage the chaos, another man approached. "Director, the cars are arriving." "It's too soon," she thought, frowning. Almost an hour ahead of schedule. When the car approached, bodyguards surrounded it in perfect formation. She bowed and greeted, "Welcome to our hotel, Miss Nana." But before she could finish, the car door opened, and a tall, handsome man stepped out, styled impeccably in a business suit. Her eyes widened in shock as she froze. Even after 6 years, she could never forget that face. It was him, the father of her child. He stood in front of her and asked, "And you are?" She tried to calm herself, silently praying, "Please don't recognize me." The man stared at her for a moment and then asked, "Are you Manager Liu?" Feeling relieved, she quickly regained her composure and replied with a polite smile, "Welcome to Hotel Dynasty. I am Gan Yuan, the director of the housekeeping department. Please come this way." He glanced at her, then walked past. As he did, his familiar scent lingered, sending her heart into a frenzy. He still smells the same, she thought. He asked for Manager Liu, so he must be her client. But where is she? As she watched his figure disappear, 2 staff members arrived to welcome him. One of them introduced the woman next to him as Manager Liu, who was responsible for serving him during his stay. Manager Liu apologized for not being there when he arrived and began rambling about the hotel's various facilities. But the man walked past her, completely ignoring her chatter. "Let me know if you need anything," Manager Liu added, rushing after him. Meanwhile, Gan Yuan prepared to leave, ready to hand over this demanding client to Manager Liu. But just as she turned, the man glanced in her direction and ordered, "I need her to serve me." She froze, stunned, and glanced back at him. "What?" she murmured, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Miss Liu looked at her with a mix of confusion and disdain. The other manager stepped in and said, "No worries, every person here is capable of giving the best service," then called out to Gan Yuan. She replied with an awkward smile, "Yes? From now on, you are in charge of Mr. Huang Fu's every affair at this hotel," he ordered. She awkwardly smiled and replied, "Sure," then stole a glance at the man. Did he recognize me? Is that why he wants me to serve him? She thought suspiciously. The man was also staring at her, and when she noticed, she swiftly looked away. Turning to Miss Liu, she said, "Well, Manager Liu, in this case, you will now be responsible for receiving Miss Nana." She handed the room card to her and added politely, "Thank you for your efforts." Then, addressing the guest, she said, "This way, Mr. Huang Fu," and led him away. As they stood in the elevator, an uncomfortable silence filled the air. She couldn't help but think, though it's been 6 years, he still looks the same, just as handsome as ever. But it seems like he didn't recognize me. How can I blame him? It was just a one-night stand, why would he remember me? When they reached their destination, he stepped out. Standing behind him, she said, "Mr. Huang Fu, if you don't need anything else then." Before she could finish, he turned around and said, "Yes, I do, but..." He paused, taking off his sunglasses. She kept her polite smile and asked, "Yes, please. I need you to be available anytime for me," he ordered. She nodded with a smile. "Okay, no problem," she replied and handed him a business card. "You can reach me on this at any time," she added. As she left, she hurried back to the elevator. Letting out a sigh, she thought, "Thank God, at last, he really didn't recognize me." She ordered more security for him. "As clearly as I remember, he's not a normal man. Wang Fuzhui is the prince of the nation, a real bigwig," she thought to herself. Lost in her thoughts, her phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the time and realized it was almost time for classes to end. Quickly, she rushed out to pick up her son. At school, the young boy and his teacher stood outside. Seeing the teacher's serious expression, Yuan wondered if Tong had done something wrong. "I heard that his grandpa passed away. I'm really sorry," the teacher said. "Oh right, I forgot about that." Yuan thought quickly and replied, "Well, we didn't expect to suffer such an unfortunate incident, but thank you." Later, as they sat in the car, Yuan questioned, "So, next time, are you going to say that your father died?" "But isn't he already dead?" Tang replied with a serious face. "Oh, right," Yuan said, remembering that she had lied to him about his father being dead to avoid unnecessary questions. "Mom, a model company came to school today, and they said I was suitable for being their child model," Tang said excitedly. "So my handsome son is going to share the burden with me now?" Yuan teased jokingly. "Well, yeah, I said yes to them," he declared proudly. "I was just joking. You don't need to do this, and you hate facing the camera, remember?" she reminded him. "But if I get chosen, they'll pay me a lot, and with that money, we can buy a home. Then we won't have to move houses again and again," Tang said, his innocence shining through. "You don't need to worry about that. I'll find a way," Yuan assured him. "But I'm going to the audition tomorrow," he said with a smile. "All right, tell me what you want to eat. I'll take you," she asked, changing the topic. "I want steak at your hotel," Tang replied. "We can't go there. That man is still there," Yuan thought. "Why don't we go to an Italian restaurant nearby?" she suggested, hoping to change his mind. "Why don't you want to take me to your hotel?" he asked with puppy eyes. No, let's go to the hotel," she said, giving in and thinking, "This boy is sometimes too smart to be fooled. Anyway, the hotel is so big, we probably won't run into him." At the hotel, as Tang washed his hands, a drunk man stumbled into the restroom. Trying to avoid him, Tang moved aside, but accidentally stumbled, nearly falling. Before he hit the ground, someone caught him and pushed the drunk man aside. "Are you okay?" the man asked. "Yes, thank you, uncle," Tang replied, glancing up at him. The man noticed the boy's beautiful eyes. "Okay then, I'll leave now." "Bye, uncle," Tang said, waving. The man watched him leave, thinking, "The kid is good-looking and smart, perfect to be a model. His eyes, they're the same as mine." Something struck him, and he glanced back, but the boy had already left. Another man approached him. "Mr. Huang Fu, the guests are here?" "Okay, I'll be there," Huang Fuju replied. On the other side, Yuan and Tang were sitting in the restaurant with Chiao, the hotel's head chef, and Yuan's good friend. Chiao offered a new dish for Yuan to taste. "I'll taste it, but I'll pay for it. And if you keep treating us to free dishes, we won't come here next time," Yuan warned with a smile. Chiao agreed and went back to the kitchen. Tong, watching the entire scene, suddenly said, "Mom, if you want to date Uncle Chow, I won't stop you." "What do you mean?" Yuan asked awkwardly. "Well, height, looks, and personality, he's perfect. And he cooks too, so we won't need takeout anymore if you date him," Tang said, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Son, do you want to find a boyfriend for me or a cook for yourself?" Yuan teased. Then, with a more serious tone, she asked, "Do you want Uncle Chow to be your father?" Tang thought for a moment, as if the idea had never crossed his mind. Then, making a cross gesture with his fingers, he replied, "No, definitely not." "Then don't make random suggestions," Yuan said with a laugh. "And let's go swimming after I finish my work, okay?" she added. At the swimming pool, Yuan let Tang swim while she went to the gym, assuring him to a friendly man she knew. Tang, wearing his swimming goggles, jumped into the pool. 20 minutes later, as Yuan was working out, someone shouted, "Director Yuan, please come. Manager Lu and Tang are having a quarrel." At the poolside, Manager Lu was yelling, "You the only one here, so how is it possible it's not you?" "You disturbed me for this?" Tang said with his arms crossed. Anger flared within Manager Lu, and she raised her hand to slap him, but before she could, Yuan grabbed her hand. "What are you doing to my son?" Yuan asked coldly. "Your son is a thief." "I'm only asking him to return my stuff," Manager Lu accused. "My son never steals. You need evidence before calling someone a thief." "Do you have any?" Yuan asked firmly. "There was only me and him here. My phone is missing from my bag. Who else could take it?" Manager Lu said, pointing at Tang. Yuan ordered the other staff member to check the camera footage, but he informed them that the cameras were off during that time. With an attitude, Manager Liu said, "All right, give me my phone back and I'll pretend this never happened." Annoyed, Yuan snapped, "Are you deaf? My son already said he didn't take it." "Okay, then let's call the police," Manager Liu shouted. Just as she finished, someone called out, "Manager Liu, I was looking for you." A staff member approached with a phone in her hand. "This is your phone, right?" she asked. Manager Liu, stunned, picked up the phone and asked, "How did you know it was mine?" "I recognized the wallpaper," the staff member replied. "How stupid," Tang muttered under his breath. "Didn't your mom teach you some manners?" Manager Liu yelled. Yuan kicked her, and with a splash, Manager Liu fell into the pool. "So, Tang, here's your lesson. We don't attack others unless provoked, but when we are, tit for tat is fair play," Yuan advised her son. "But Mom, what if she comes back because you upset her?" Tang asked. "Don't worry, son, your mom is strong," she replied confidently. The next morning, Yuan stood outside the office and heard Manager Liu crying loudly. Entering the room, she saw Manager Liu complaining to the manager, tears streaming down her face. "Look at the bruises on my hand. It's all because she pushed me into the pool and bullied me," Manager Liu accused. The manager turned to Yuan. "Did you do this?" he asked. "Yes," Yuan replied firmly. Manager Liu stood up angrily, but before anyone could say anything, Yuan's phone rang. Seeing it was a call from that demanding client, she picked up. After ending the call, she addressed the manager. "He's asking for me to come." "Go ahead. Our clients are our top priority, and he's a key client," the manager said. Before leaving, Yuan turned to Manager Liu and said, "Next time, make sure not to fall by tripping over high heels." Then she left. Arriving at the client's floor, Yuan opened the door and froze. Those mesmerizing blue eyes that made her heart flutter were staring back at her. The man stood there, his sharp features as striking as she remembered. Collecting herself, she said politely, "Mr. Huang Fu, is there anything I can do for you?" Huang Fuju glanced at her before signaling to his secretary, who handed her a set of documents. "We want to have a conference on the hotel's rooftop. Also, Mr. Huang Fu will extend his stay for 10 more days. Could you arrange that?" the secretary said. "What, 10 more days? Are you kidding me?" she thought. Forcing a smile, she replied, "I'm sorry, but the rooftop is already booked. I'll pay for the damages. Please negotiate with the guest," Huang Fu replied firmly. "Okay, I'll try my best," she said, thinking, he never compromises and is just as stubborn as Tang. As she walked toward the elevator, she noticed Zhu approaching with his subordinates. They entered the elevator together. "Which floor?" she asked. "First," he replied casually. Standing silently, Yuan thought, why is he staying longer? Is it for work? Or some other reason? Zhu also observed her quietly, thinking, this woman always seems to hide something, like a little fox. And her eyes. His eyes widened slightly with realization. She resembles someone I once knew. "Have you been working here long?" he asked. "Nearly 2 years," she replied with an awkward smile. "Where were you before this?" he asked again. "Why does it feel like he's checking on me?" she thought. "Just in some small hotels," she replied shortly. As the elevator stopped and more people entered with luggage, their fingers accidentally brushed. Startled, Yuan quickly pulled her hand back. Zhu noticed but said nothing, watching her reaction. "Does she dislike me?" he wondered. When the elevator opened again, Yuan stepped out quickly, pushing past the others. Watching her retreating figure, Zhu stood still, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Yuan's face flushed red. Annoyed with herself, she thought, it was just a slight touch. Why am I feeling shy about it? In the audition room, Tang sat confidently in his well-fitted suit, looking dashing as he tried different poses for the shoot. Zhu entered the room and his eyes widened as he noticed the child. This is the boy I was talking about. Do you like him?" the man beside him asked. "Yes," Zhu replied, glancing at Tang. Filled with excitement, the man called out, "Call the kid's parents here." "They didn't come with me," Tang replied casually. The boy continued, "I'm the one who will discuss the contract with you. If you agree to my conditions, I'll sign." His maturity and confidence left everyone surprised. Inside the office, Zhu and Tang sat across from each other, both striking similar poses, as if the child was a carbon copy of the man. "What do you want?" Zhu asked. "I need an advance payment for 2 years," Tang replied firmly. The room fell silent in shock. "How is this young kid so experienced in negotiating business?" someone mumbled. "Are you desperately in need of money?" Zhu asked with a faint smile. "No, I need to buy a house. Moving again and again is troublesome, and I don't want my mom to worry about it anymore," Tang said with innocent eyes. "Is he from a single-parent family?" Zhu wondered. "And why do you think I'll agree?" he asked. Tang answered confidently. "Because firstly, I find myself the most suitable for your shoots. Secondly, you require someone for shoots in different countries, and I'm fine with that. Thirdly, You're the boss, and since you're here personally discussing the contract with me, you must be interested in me. The corner of Ju's lips lifted slightly, impressed by the boy's reasoning. After a moment, he said, "Okay, I agree to your conditions. Let's sign the contract." Tang stood up and extended his hand. "Nice working with you," he said. Ju shook his hand and asked, "What's your name?" "It's Gan Tang," the boy replied. The meaning of the boy's name reminded Ju of her. "What's your name?" Tang asked in return. Standing up, Ju ruffled the boy's hair and replied, "My name is Huang Fuju." Tang tilted his head, thinking, "Except for one night when the moon is full. Every other night it's Ju, right? It means incomplete moon, doesn't it?" The boy explained. Ju was shocked. How does such a young kid know the meaning of my name, he wondered. The man beside them smiled and said, "You two are so much alike. If I hadn't known earlier, I might have thought you were father and son." Both Ju and Tang glanced at each other, noticing their similarities. Soon, Tang's watch beeped, and he answered a call. "Hello, Mom," he said. "How's your audition going?" "Can we now get a house?" Yuan asked jokingly on the other end. "Is that Director Gan's voice? Is he your son?" Ju thought. "Yes, Mom. Can you come here to sign the contract?" Tang asked. "I have some work assigned by a nuisance. Could you come to the hotel instead?" she replied. Hearing her words, anger flared in Ju. Is she referring to me as a nuisance? He thought. "Okay, see you there," Tang said, ending the call. Turning to the man, he asked, "Mr. Chairman, can we go to the hotel where my mom works to sign the contract?" Ju agreed and gestured to his assistant to take Tang away. Once they left, Ju called Yuan. Yuan picked up the call, sounding annoyed. "Mr. Wang Fu, how can I help you?" "Director Gan, you have a son, right?" Ju asked directly. The sudden question shocked her. Trembling, she asked, "Why are you asking that?" "We'll talk in person," Ju replied, and ended the call. Her heart raced. What does he want to talk about? Did he figure it out? Does he know Tang is his son? Overwhelmed by questions, she was lost in thought when Tang approached her. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he asked. "Nothing, just some work," she replied, hiding her worry. She looked at her son, fearing that Ju might have come for Tang. Watching him leave, she thought firmly, even if he came for him, I don't care. I gave birth to him, and no one, not even Huang Fu Ju, can take him away from me. Inside the room, Ju showed Yuan all the pictures taken during the photo shoot. Why is he showing me Tang's pictures? Is he really thinking of taking him away? She thought anxiously. "Please sit down," Ju said, gesturing to the chair. "I am here to inform you that I'm taking Tang to Europe for 3 days, as the requirement is to shoot photos in an ancient European setup," he added. "No, I don't agree," she shouted, her fear spiking at the thought of him taking her son away. "Why?" he asked calmly. "Tang will be where I am," she replied firmly. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her point. Tang was indeed too young to travel alone. "Well, you can come along," he added casually. Huh. This guy has the audacity to take both me and my son together? She thought angrily. "No. My son is not going anywhere, and neither am I," she yelled. Frowning, he asked, "Director Gan, do you have a problem with the contract?" Her heart sank as realization hit her. He was the boss of the company her son had signed the contract with. How was that possible? "I checked the company before signing, and it wasn't linked to HK Group," she thought in disbelief. As they were talking, a loud bang came from the bathroom. They both turned toward the sound and water started flowing out. Yuan ran to the bathroom to shut off the main valve. As she reached the valve, the strong flow of water pushed her backward, causing her to stumble against Ju. Fearing he would recognize her if her glasses fell, she quickly pushed him away. But Ju had already noticed her eyes. Grabbing her wrist, he pushed her against the wall. "What are you doing, Mr. Wang Fu?" she shouted. He stared into her eyes, his expression serious. Who are you?" he asked. Leaning closer, he removed her glasses. She turned her head to avoid eye contact. "Who are you?" he repeated, gripping her chin and turning her face toward him. "Why are you avoiding looking at me?" he asked again. She struggled to free herself. "Mr. Huang Fu, please behave yourself. If you don't, I'll have to call someone," she said. "Was it you who spent the night with me 6 years ago?" he asked bluntly. Realizing he wasn't completely sure of her identity, she shouted, "Mr. Wang Fu, what are you talking about? You've got the wrong person." "Then why are you so nervous?" he asked, still holding her hands. "Because I'm a person who gets nervous when pushed against the wall by someone I hate," she yelled in frustration. His eyes darkened. "She hates me? Am I that bad?" he thought. He studied her carefully. She denied being the one, but her personality and indifferent attitude said otherwise. He cupped her face and leaned closer, trying to confirm for himself. "Don't run away anymore," he murmured. Her eyes widened as she realized what was about to happen. She pushed him back and covered his lips with her hand. "What are you doing?" she yelled, then ran toward the door. Before she could get far, he grabbed her shoulder, accidentally pulling off her coat sleeve. Embarrassment and anger filled her face. "Move your hands!" she shouted. Realizing what happened, Ju quickly removed his hand, but in his haste he slipped, and in the next second, he fell over her. They both hit the floor, and their lips met in an accidental kiss. Yuan screamed for help, and two men rushed into the room. Seeing the scene, they froze in place. "Get out of here now!" Ju shouted, covering her. The two men exchanged glances but left immediately. Yuan tried to push him off. "If you try to touch me, I'll bite you," she said angrily. Ju stared at her for a moment before releasing her. "I'm sorry, I was wrong," he said and left. She stood there puzzled. What just happened? Why did he leave so suddenly? Then realization dawned on her. She looked at her back. "Oh, I see. It's because I removed a tattoo from my back. Well, good for me," she thought happily. Soon his assistant arrived with new clothes and handed her some money as compensation. Her anger flared. "Am I so poor in his eyes?" she muttered, refusing the money. Without saying another word, she asked for her room and left. As Yuan entered Ju's room, she saw him shirtless. Embarrassed but gathering her courage, she asked him to cancel Tang's contract. But he firmly denied it. Angrily, she argued with him, but not getting her way, she finally left. Later, after changing into clean clothes, she approached the manager's office, only to find Ju's assistant already there. The assistant offered her dinner as an apology. "Sorry, I'm busy," Yuan declined immediately. But the manager insisted, promising to replace her work with someone else. As the assistant left with her positive reply, the manager begged Yuan to go, reminding her of how he had helped her in tough times. Reluctantly, she agreed. At home, as Yuan freshened up, she remembered Ju's disappointed face when he didn't find the tattoo on her back. Did he really remember me? She wondered. But she was determined. No matter how sad he looked, she wouldn't let him take her son. Meanwhile, Ju met with a tattoo artist, inquiring if a removed tattoo could look the same as before. "There won't be a big difference, but subtle changes are visible. It's impossible for it to look exactly the same," the artist explained. Ju nodded, understanding. His assistant approached and handed over documents about Gun Ting, along with Yuan's glasses found in the bathroom. Examining the glasses, Ju noted they were plain frames without a prescription. Looking at Tang's birth date in the documents, Ju calculated the timing and realized it aligned perfectly with their encounter 6 years ago. His eyes widened at the possibility. So I wasn't mistaken. If she's the one, then Gontang. Ju stood abruptly. "Prepare the car. I'm going to pick them up," he ordered. At home, Tang stood ready for their outing, calling out for his mom. Yuan entered in her comfy loungewear, still wearing her glasses and with her hair tied in a bun. When the doorbell rang, Tang ran to open it. Ju stood at the door, dressed dashingly. Tang led him inside, announcing, "I'll introduce you to my mom." Ju placed a hand on his head and said, "We already know each other, right, Gan Yuan?" He glanced at her with sharp eyes. Yuan introduced him stiffly. "He's a client at our hotel. You can call him Mr. Huang Fu." "I prefer uncle, though," Ju replied. Soon, Ju's assistant entered, carrying several gifts. "We can't accept these," Yuan said firmly. "It's impolite to visit empty-handed. If you don't like them, you can throw them away," Ju replied. "Then help me throw them out," Yuan retorted with the same attitude. The air in the room turned chilly. "Uncle, don't take it seriously, Mom's just joking," Tang said, trying to ease the tension. Shall we go then?" the assistant asked. But Ju sat down and said, "No hurry. Formal dress code is required for the restaurant," glancing pointedly at Yuan. "Okay, then wait for me," Yuan said, running off to her bedroom. While she was gone, Ju asked Tang, "Tang, where is your father?" "He passed away," the boy replied straightforwardly. Yuan returned, dressed entirely in black. "I'm ready. Shall we go?" she declared. "Is she going to a funeral?" Ju thought. As she passed him, he noticed her hair was down, making her look gentler. She demanded a separate car for them, which annoyed Ju slightly. At the restaurant, Ju asked Tang, "Do you like it here?" Tang enthusiastically shared how much he enjoyed it. Yuan turned to him with a fork in hand and said, "Don't talk while eating, son. It's bad manners." In doing so, she accidentally spilled a few drops of sauce on Ju's clothes. "My bad." "Let me help," she said, attempting to clean the stain with a tissue, only to spread it further. Ju stood and walked toward the restroom to clean up. Glancing at her, he thought she did that on purpose. While he was away, Tang turned to Yuan. "Mom, why did you do that? You did it on purpose, didn't you?" he asked, startling her. But his next question made her choke on her water. "Mom, is he pursuing you?" he asked seriously. "Little one, you better remember he's our guest," she scolded. "So what?" Tang replied stubbornly. "Anyway, what do you think of him?" she asked seriously. "Well, he's quite nice, except for his bad temper," Tang said thoughtfully. Annoyed, Yuan asked, But he's so arrogant, picky, and proud. What's good about him? As they talked, Ju returned. Don't mind me. Continue, he said, sitting down. Awkwardly, Yuan said, well, we should take our leave. Thank you, Mr. Wang Fu, for dinner. As they were leaving, someone called out Yuan's name. They turned to see Chow waving at them. Tong ran to Chow with a smile. If you're leaving, should we go together? He asked. Ju stood watching the scene. You don't need to bother, he said, walking closer. They're my guests, so I'll take them home. He took Yuan and Tang by their hands and led them outside. Behind them, a woman shouted, You're leaving because of that woman? Chow turned back and said firmly, I'll leave whenever I want. And what about our engagement? The woman asked hastily. You have all my documents, so you can register by yourself. Chow replied coldly. You're going too far, she shouted. I've never cheated on you. Anyway, I have duties tomorrow morning, so I'm leaving now, he said, walking away. In the car, Yuan sat awkwardly while Ju turned to Tang. Tang, I asked you to bring your passport. Did you bring it? He asked. Tang handed it to him, but Yuan, scared that Ju might discover anything about her child, tried to snatch it away. Ju raised his hand, dodging her attempt. As he glanced at the passport, he noticed that Tang shared the same blood type as him. Yuan yelled, Mr. Wang Fu, I already told you I'm going to cancel the contract. You can't just decide that on your own, he retorted. Tang, looking up innocently, asked, Mommy, why do you want to cancel it? Yuan forced a smile. Because Mommy is busy and can't accompany you, she explained. But I can go on my own, and besides, Uncle will be with me. Tang replied confidently. This kid doesn't even know he's taking his father's side, Yuan thought, frustrated. I can ask the manager to approve your vacation, Ju said to Yuan. I don't need your help, she replied firmly. When they arrived, Yuan sent Tang ahead and stayed behind to deal with Ju. Now give me my car key back, she demanded. Ju handed it back, but in the next second he grabbed her hand and pinned her against the car. Removing her glasses, he asked, He's my son, isn't he? Even if you want a son, you can't just claim someone else's. She snapped. His birth month is August, which means you got pregnant in November the previous year. And his blood type matches mine, Ju explained. In this world, many children are born in August, and anyone can have the same blood type, she argued. Why did you leave that morning? He asked directly. Yuan tried to pull away. Mr. Huang Fu, please behave yourself. I've never met you before, and my son has nothing to do with you, she screamed. She pushed him away and ran, but before she got far, he grabbed her hand, startling her. Then he kissed her, making her eyes widen in shock. His grip tightened, and the kiss deepened. For a moment, she forgot everything and kissed him back. His kiss was eager and forceful, yet awkward, just like their first kiss. Realizing what she was doing, Yuan pushed him away. You're shameless, now go away, she yelled. Ju frowned at her continued denial. He leaned in and bit her neck gently, leaving his mark. Are you a dog or what? She shouted angrily. Grinning, he turned to leave. See you tomorrow then, he said. What do you want from me? She demanded. To pursue you, he replied without hesitation. But I have no interest in you, she shouted back. It doesn't matter, because I do, he said firmly, and walked away, leaving her behind. Later, when Yuan returned home, she found Tang already asleep. Sitting beside him, she pulled out his drawing book. Opening it, she was shocked to see a drawing of a father and son. The son was clearly Tang, but the father's features were left undefined. She looked at him worriedly. She knew he was good at painting, and the only reason this picture was incomplete was that she had never told him what his father looked like. It's better this way. The less he knows, the easier it will be for me to handle the situation, she thought. As Yuan returned to her room, she noticed bodyguards outside the building. Did he send them to make sure I don't run away? She wondered. The next morning, at work, Ju's assistant informed her that Mr. Huang Fu was calling for her and handed her a courier. Opening it, her eyes widened. It was her portrait, a back profile from 6 years ago. The assistant kept watching her discreetly to gauge her reaction. Noticing this, Yuan calmly threw the picture into the trash. The assistant later informed Ju of everything. Inside Ju's room, Chow brought breakfast. Ju glanced at him. Where's the other chef, he asked. He's not feeling well, so I came on his behalf, Chow replied with a polite smile. I brought everything you like, as Yuan told me, he added. Ju's eyes sharpened at the mention of Yuan's name. He ordered other items, and when Yuan entered, he ordered the same for her. Yuan noticed the tension and how difficult Ju seemed to be. She decided to leave. Then I won't disturb Mr. Huang Fu's breakfast, she said, turning to leave. But Ju grabbed her wrist. Be a good girl. Sit down and dine with me, he said calmly. Her face flushed red, but she accepted the invitation. Xiao presented the ordered items and said, I can redo them if you're not satisfied. If Yuan likes it, then I don't mind it, Ju said affectionately. His assistant's face paled. His boss had never spoken like this about any woman. Yuan too was stunned, thinking, what the hell is he talking about? As their argument escalated, Yuan began coughing hard, startled by Ju's outrageous remarks. Ju leaned closer to her and whispered teasingly, what happened? Does your tongue still hurt from my kiss last night? Her coughing intensified, her face turning red with embarrassment. Chow quickly handed her a tissue, but Ju cupped her face, turning her to look at him. He leaned in, brushing her lips with his thumb, then licked his thumb and smirked. It seems you've changed your lipstick today, he said smoothly. It was clear he had no intention of backing down. Yuan's face flushed in frustration. What is this man even talking about? Chow stood nearby, glaring at Ju. The tension between them was palpable, as if an invisible battle was raging. Yuan stood up abruptly, but Ju pulled her back to his side. Turning to Chow, he ordered, you may leave now. Chow clenched his fists, barely restraining himself, but he left reluctantly. He had hidden his feelings for Yuan for so long, hoping to show her his love gradually. But because of Ju's presence, desperation now clawed at him. Inside, Yuan glared at Ju. I'm warning you one last time, don't you dare touch me with your hands, she yelled. What about with my mouth? Ju replied teasingly. Anger flared within her. Determined to teach him a lesson, she grabbed a teacup and hurled it at him. Ju quickly covered himself with a towel, peeking out with a playful grin. If you don't want to eat, then we can talk about you, me and Tang, he said. I've already told you I've never met you. And Tang is not your son, she shouted. Okay, then what about a paternity test, he suggested. As long as the results confirm it, I'll believe you, he added calmly. Her face darkened. If you want to play this cat and mouse game, fine. I'll play along. Okay, be ready tomorrow morning, and don't forget to pay for it, she replied sharply. Ju frowned at her reaction. Is she really not the one? But everything points to her, he thought, growing frustrated. Suddenly he rose from his chair and leaned toward her. There's something in your hair, he said, tucking a loose strand behind her ear. The next moment, he loosened her bun, letting her hair cascade down. What are you doing? She shouted, startled. Don't tie your hair the next time you see me, he ordered, his tone commanding. Who are you to order me? She asked, her annoyance evident. Who am I? He repeated confidently. I'm the one you'll fall in love with. And that